So my class in particular has been reading Tom Hom's book. And one of the things they had to do was to write a book review, to do their own self-analysis of their personal life, and to do a spreadsheet on Tom Hom's life. So we went through the Erik Erikson stages of personal development, and they had to analyze his whole book and how he developed as a person. And they had to then analyze their own lives and how they developed. And these students don't know it, but I'm going to share with you a couple of book reviews that I thought were just outstanding. All right? So this one, May, you can surface and come out. She's holding the door. All right, May, this is her book review. I would recommend Rabbit on a Bumpy Road by Tom Hom to the locals or anyone who are interested in the history of San Diego and people of color, specifically Asians. I was amazed to know that some of the places that were mentioned in the book still exist today. Before reading this book, I really thought Asians did not have any big role in American society back then. No matter the fact that they were still discriminated against. Even though not all Asian families back then owned businesses or ran for political office, there were some that did. It was Tom Hom. He ran with white men and won. The story about his family journey from China to America was exciting too. I would never thought that they made the laws that forbid lower-class Chinese people to enter America unless they were the working-class Chinese people. The struggle the Hom family has been through inspires me to do better in life and keeps me motivated to achieve my goals. The story about the wars and how Japanese Americans were put in camps were sad too. I felt bad for them because they got their lives taken away and they only received some money in return for all their loss. I love how supporting Tom Hom's family were to each other. Tom's family are so humble and generous to others, I'm not surprised at all why so many respected him and his family. This book brought me, or has taught me, that hardworking people will achieve great things in life. You must not forget where you came from. Stay humble and kind, because it will kill those who are hating on you. So, hey, thank you for that. This is another one from Naomi. Naomi, over there. Reading the book, Rabbit on a Bumpy Road, a story of courage and endurance by Tom Hom. I would definitely recommend the book to read. His book is an autobiography of his life when he came to America. The book is filled with experiences that we can relate to. We all have heard about the American dream, which Tom talks about, and how he pursues it in his life. He faced many obstacles to achieve it, but he didn't let those get in the way of accomplishing his goals. In the book, Tom talks about historical events and buildings that still exist today we have seen or visited. The book reflects that we as a person decide our future, and that the obstacles we face, we can overcome them with faith and strength. Also, that love gives us the strength to overcome obstacles for a better life for our kids. Tom, due to his courage and willingness, he became a well-known person today because he helped many people in the community. He inspires people to achieve their American dream. Thank you, Neil. All right, so now I would like to introduce Gail Hom. Gail Hom is the daughter of Tom Hom, and she will be introducing Tom because she knows him best. So thank you, Gail.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here to introduce my father. I am the second of 6 of his children, 5 girls and 1 boy. We all grew up in San Diego as well. So without further ado, throughout his life, my father, Tom Hom, was instrumental in transforming San Diego into the vibrant city it is today. His family history in San Diego began when his grandfather arrived from Canton, China in 1884, worked as a merchant, and returned to China to raise a family. Later, his father immigrated to San Diego in 1909. He was born and raised in San Diego's old China. My dad was born and raised in San Diego's old Chinatown, located at 3rd and J Streets in 1927. He spent his earliest days speaking only Chinese, and he'll share a little bit about that with you. But he quickly assimilated into American culture when he entered elementary school. As a young boy, he became familiar with the city by delivering newspapers and providing 10-cent shoe shines on the street corners of downtown San Diego. At the age of 12, he recalls receiving his first lesson in civic affairs and giving back to the community from his father. And he will detail that during his presentation. In 1963, he made San Diego history when he was elected as the first minority to the San Diego City Council. He was re-elected in 1967, a citywide election, receiving 87% of the vote. He served as a city council on the city's council's task force to build the Jack Murphy Stadium. He headed that task force, by the way. And that stadium is known as Qualcomm Stadium today. In 1965, his colleagues unanimously elected him deputy mayor. In 1968, he was elected to the California State Assembly. Founder of the Tom Hom Group, he has had a successful career in real estate for more than 60 years. His activities have included acquisition, development, historic rehabilitation, and strategic repositioning of underachieving properties. Although known locally for his activities in the Gaslamp quarter and along the Mexican border in Tecate, California, his firm has received national recognition for its expertise in developing a workforce housing product known as a SRO, or a single room occupancy hotel. He even saved the Western Metal Supply building from the wrecking ball, and that is now incorporated into the left field at Petco Park, the Western Metal building, which you usually see when you're at a game. His additional business expertise includes banking and broadcasting investments. He's received numerous accolades and awards for his contributions, too many for me to mention, and he's always taught us not to boast, so I won't go there. One of his biggest honors, though, was receiving the honor of being named Mr. San Diego 2014 by the San Diego Rotary Club. And he is humbled to be included amongst key civic leaders, one elected each year for the past 62 years. Even at age 89, he still keeps his finger on the pulse of San Diego and offers support and knowledge. My father, Tom Hom.
Thank you, Gail. What a pleasure to be here. As I walked in, Karen said, "Tom, we have an invitation here, and you speak for about 35 minutes, and after that we have questions." And my wife tells me, "Tom, you got to keep time, and we don't want to bore the people. Don't overdo it." And Gail told me, she said, "I had the signal when your time is up." And so, you know, that kind of reminds me of the after-dinner speaker. He got up to talk, he kept talking. People in the rear started to leave, he kept talking until everyone left except for one gentleman sitting about right there in the front row. And he leaned over that one fellow and said, "Sir, I'm sure glad you stayed." He looked up and said, "Sir, I'm the next speaker." But, you know, and I'm also mindful of the fact that a speaker with his wife sitting next to him as he was talking, she handed him a note. On the note it said, "KISS," K-I-S-S. So on the way home, he turned to his wife and said, "Honey, why so romantic while I'm talking?" She said, K-I-S-S means keep it short, stupid. So I'm mindful of that. This is about my 55th occasion, pleasure to come before a group, talk about my book, and it's indeed my pleasure. And this is me when I was 2 years old. My mother was born in China. And it's called Bumpy on the Road, on a bumpy road, because, you know, life, all of us, every one of us, we have ups and downs. I had my ups and downs like you had, your parents and so forth. It's a question of landing on your feet, work hard enough to arise again. A rabbit in the Chinese calendar every 12 years. Every year for 12 years, there's a name after an animal. So I was born on the year of the rabbit. So 12 years later, you know I'm 12 years old when I tell you I'm a rabbit. Then later, when I'm 24, you know I'm a rabbit. So every 12 years, you're a rabbit. So anyway, I just want to share that with you. That's how we happen to pick that title. Okay, let's move on here. This is my dad. As Gail said, my dad came to the country when he was 15, 1909. First place he went to was a Chinese Presbyterian mission in San Francisco, off the boat. There, they gave him the name after, well, he took the name after the study of the Bible, David and Goliath. My dad was only a fellow about 5'4", small. So that was his name. He adopted that name, David. And he was impressed with David and Goliath's story. So everything he did was called David. So when he came to San Diego as a young man, he peddled fruit. He was a fruit peddler. Went door to door and so forth. And eventually he saved up money. And then, of course, then he got married. And then he started a wholesale produce company called David Produce. David Produce Company. That company existed for about 85 years. It passed on to the children afterwards. So that was my dad. He raised 12 children. After he went back China, got matched up. He did the aunt in China there, matched them up. So anyways, he had 12 children. And why don't we move on to the next one here? And when I was 4 years old, my mother passed away. So with 5 boys, my dad already had 5 boys, but by then, no girls, just 5 boys. And he felt he had to marry again, so he went back China and married. And this is my second mother here. And she came on her premise, understanding that, yes, of course, she can have children as well. And so these are the 2 first children, there's 2 babies there. And then the others are 5 boys. And so my dad started the family, and he was doing well in the wholesale produce business. And even then, I was about 12 years old. He used to take us all down to a produce company and learn the business by sweeping the floor, stacking the crates, and so forth. And so why don't we move on this. And you know, sometimes people say, Tom, how do you get from here to there? You know, these 2 gentlemen on my left, you're right, is William J. Oakes, principal of Memorial Junior High School in Southeast San Diego. None of you know him there. He was there for about 25 years, but that's when I left Sherman School, was in Southeast San Diego, went to junior high. And one of the first things I was so impressed, as a kid from Chinatown, spoke only English. I mean Spanish. I do speak Spanish. But anyway, speaking only Chinese at the time, I went to grammar school in the kindergarten on 12th Street, 12th and E Street, not far from here. And the first day in school, I got hurt playing in the playground. I started crying, probably scared and hurt. My teacher tried to get me to stop. I didn't stop, I kept crying until she reached in her apron, brought out a piece of candy and said, "Candy?" And I stopped, and I said, "Candy." Those are my first English words. And then, you know, so Chinatown was a self-contained community. Chinese lived together in 4 square blocks downtown, right next to Gaslamp. Next to Chinatown, the Japantown. Next to Japantown, the Filipino town. So the Asians kind of live in kind of one area. And not that we wanted all live in one, but at that time they had called deed restrictions where you couldn't buy property, and 85% of the people, area in San Diego had deed restrictions on the property, meaning that minorities could not buy the property. So minorities kind of relegated together. And so William J. O's, one thing I remember him so well, that every time we had an assembly, one of the first things he would say, since we're in Southeast San Diego, most of the kids were immigrant kids or minorities, he said, boys and girls, what I want you to know, you're in America, you're Americans, you have every right as everybody else. And these rights are, and he'll talk about the Constitution and these things. Win J.O.'s, to a young man, these are from Chinatown, these are revelations, Gee, you have all the rights, but yet you were kind of relegated to a certain area. And on the right here is Les Gary's, Admiral Les Gary's. Les Gary's a retired admiral, war hero in World War II. He was in the front page of Life magazine and Time magazine, and he had an aircraft carrier, and he's a big World War hero. But anyway, I get to him a little later, but anyway, that's me on the right there. Every time I look at that, I think that should be at the post office, most wanted guy. But anyway, I'm 4 years old there, and that's right before I went to school. But anyway, while I'm here, I just want to talk about Les Gary's for a moment. Les Gary is a retired admiral. As a young man, I became interested in government because my dad, at the age of 12, he pointed to a building on the southwest corner, Gaslamp Quarter. You know where Gaslamp is. Southwest corner, there's a 4-story building. It's still there. While we were at that corner there, he pointed out that building. He said, Tom, in America, the laws that come out of there is dependent upon the people who they put in there. The laws that come out of there depend on what the voters, the people they put in there. And I said, gee, that's great. 12 years ago, I thought it was great. And so, anyway, that was an impression. And later on, I started working in government, electing people and so forth, in Southeast San Diego. And when I talk about this, I want you to know that I think America has two wonderful parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. So I'm not trying to tell you that one is better than the other. But anyway, I worked for Democrat candidates because we were in Southeast San Diego. And then later I talked to when I was in my 20s, I talked to the chairman of the Democratic Party. I said, sir, I would like to run for public office one day, soon I hope. He looked at me in the eye and put his arms on my shoulder, very kindly gentleman. He said, Tom, I think that's great. I think that's great. And we want you to run, but the time isn't right. In the history of San Diego, no minority has ever been elected to the city council. See, in 10 years, we'll have you'll be ready. 10 years is a long time for a young man. So anyway, I forgot about it. So I was at a conference. I met a retired commander from the Navy. We were talking about business. And then during lunch, I just happened to mention my interest in politics. And I was told to wait. Maybe I could be trained to run. He said, Tom, I want you to meet a guy. He said, he's a friend of mine. So he took me to meet Les Gary's. And Les Gary's, when I went to his office in a high-rise downtown, there on the door said, Chairman of the Republican Party. I said, what am I doing here? And then the door opened. There stands this guy, Les Gary, 6'3", built like a bulldog. Put out his hand, he said, God damn it, Tom, what's this I hear that you shouldn't run because you're not ready for it? He said, I don't give a darn who you are. There are more flowery words than that. But he said, if you have what it takes to run, you run. He said, if you're interested in running for politics, I can help you. And that's how I got connected. He told me about running for public office and these things, the issues and things. I did run, I did win. So that's how I became involved. But less scary. So what I want to point out is that there are mentors in our lives. Maybe we don't know we have mentors. The biggest mentor is my dad. He had a rule. Every day, the 12 children, we had dinner together. That was the rule. And what did we do? He would talk to us. He'd say, Tom, what did you do in school today? What did you learn? And Jim, how about you? What did you do? Then he would share philosophy with us and so forth. And then one thing he would always say to the boys, always be a gentleman. Always be a gentleman. And he would tell all the children, he would close something like this. He said, remember who you are, remember what you are, and people judge you by your character along with that. Who you are, what you are, and your character, and people judge you on that. If they can judge you on that with respect, that's the most important thing. After respect, they can learn to like you. Once they learn to like you, they can learn to love you. But you got to understand who you are, what you are, and for your character. Have people respect you for that. So he adjourned on those bases. So anyway, we all have mentors, either your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle, the person next door, or your professor, whatever it is, or your best friend. We all have mentors, and sometimes we need to listen. Okay, well, why don't we move on here? That's me at 16. My dad passed away in 1943, the height of World War II. I was 16 years old then. And there's that David Produce Company my dad started. And that's me on the right there, and with the rest of my brothers. And one of the things that when my dad passed away, we took over the business, and I had to quit school part-time in order to support the family because the war was on. My oldest brother was in the service. I'm the third oldest. So my second brother and myself, we supported the family. We ran this company, and I went to school part-time because that was required by law. You had to go to school until you had a certain age. So anyway, we supported the family, my mother and 11 with my brother in the Army at that time. So anyway, that's where we learned how to work with people. And one of the things about the produce business, you get people of different nationality, different backgrounds and so forth. But we're all in one area. We work in this used to be part of Gaslamp, this area here. They're not there anymore. But we had a chance to meet a lot of different people. And one of the things I have always learned, produce is perishable. Perishable, so you learn to negotiate. So you want to negotiate. I learned this in life, in the produce business. You always try to end up with two winners. Two winners, then you're okay. So the produce business, you learn to negotiate. So you have two winners, the buyer and the seller. Okay, why don't we move on here? Anyway, working in the produce business for many long hours, when I became about 19 years old, I was delivering produce downtown. I saw on a corner with a large trailer with a sign on it that said, free x-ray, County of San Diego. I said, wow, free. So I went in and took an x-ray. 2 weeks later, they called me back to take another one. So they called me back again and after a second one. The doctor said, Tom, I'm sorry to tell you, you have a rare case of TB, tuberculosis. This was 1950 now. 1950, they had no medicine absolutely for tuberculosis, TB. And he said, Tom, it's in a very early stage, you're young, and if we put you in a hospital, maybe we can give you treatment and so forth, and rest, and maybe we can arrest the spread of your TB. It's very early. So I went to the sanitarium. And so in the sanitarium, what they did, they collapsed my lungs. So give your lungs, TB was in my lungs, would give you a rest. The theory was that your body, through your health, your eating, resting, and so forth, would fight the germ. You use your natural, let's say, ability. So indeed, it did arrest my TB. So before I came out, they sent a counselor to me to advise what I should do, because he said, obviously, you can't go back in a produce business where you wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, you work 10, 12 hours a day. You need to find something easier to do. We can have you work in the factory to make leather goods, purses, wallets, and things like that in alcohol. Or we can place you with a company that repair watches. You know, when I was a young man, my favorite hobby in school was to paint and draw. And my drawings were always displayed in the hallway and so forth. And I always had a vision I wanted to do art as a living. I said, sir, I would like to go to college and get a degree to teach. My counselor hesitated, very kindly said, Tom, I'm sorry to tell you, the Unified School District does not hire minorities. It's like, so there's no use getting a college degree to teach art. So that took care of that. So I went back and worked in a produce company doing bookkeeping. And bookkeeping to me was a kind of activity I like. I like people and so forth. So anyway, I saw in a newspaper a school to learn real estate, college to learn real estate. So I learned real estate. So I became in the real estate business. And so in church, I met my wife, and that's my first child, and that's my first real estate office. And at that time, they had what you call, and 85% of the properties in San Diego had what you call covenants, racial covenants. And the racial covenants had restrictions that the property can only be owned by Caucasians. Minorities cannot own it. But minorities can live there if you are a servant or a caregiver or something of that sort. You can live there on those basis, but you cannot own it. That was 85% of the property in San Diego. And so, anyway, in spite of that, I went into the business. I did make a lot of good friends, Caucasians and so forth. And I worked in Southeast San Diego, and some of my Caucasian friends that worked in Qualcomm, Mission Hills, and other areas, they would give me some of their listings that they would get in Southeast San Diego. So I had a good business going. So anyway, what on the right-hand side here is I was man of the year of the board of realtor. At that time, before this picture, I could not join the board because of George, they had a creed. And in that creed, one thing they said that, along with about 10 other things, but the one that said, as a realtor, I shall not do anything to jeopardize the value of real estate. Shall not do anything to jeopardize the value of real estate. So putting in a minority, what that means that you do not put a minority in the neighborhood that depreciates the property. So I couldn't join the board. So I did make application and never act on it. So anyway, why I have this picture on the right, that after a few years, when I became deputy mayor and city council of the state, as a legislator, and went back in the real estate business. And some of these faults have changed. They put me on the board, created a special committee for me to run, and the committee was very successful. And they made me realtor of the year. So that difference between 10, 12 years, 10, 12 years. So these things happen, and I'm mindful of what my dad used to say. He said, Tom, whatever inequities we might have, America has too many good people. They will change. Indeed it has. Indeed it has. You know, he used to, the only movies that he would go to see was Charlie Chaplin. Any of you know about Charlie Chaplin? Charlie, famous comedian. That's the only time he went to the movie, at the Cabrillo Theater that was across the street from the Horton Plaza there. The theater's gone now. But anyway, he would go there and he would see Charlie Chaplin. But he had to sit in the balcony where all the minorities sat. Then sometimes he would share the story about some of his friends, Caucasian friends. And my Caucasian friends say, Dave, it's not fair. You know, you're a good guy, you should sit in where you, they say, his comeback was always say, you know, that's the way it is, but America has too many good people, it's going to change. And indeed it's changed. And he's seen changes as we went on. And so a lot of these laws have changed, and I'm happy to say that I was lucky enough to be part of the participant in changing some of these. And so anyway, we went into the development business in real estate. We have programs in Tennessee, Las Vegas, Arizona, and of course in California. And so that was our livelihood. Okay, next. These are my brothers, myself. I'm the only guy with a suit because I was running for election and had to look a little dignified. And so anyway, my brother, just very quickly, Thomas was named, that's my name, named after Thomas Edison, the great inventor. And I got a brother named James, after the fourth president of the United States, James Madison. And I got a brother named John Phillip, you know John Phillip? John Philip Sousa, the great band leader, marching band. And I got a brother named George, you know George, first president. And you know, he gave us these names so we can fit into the fabric of America. Like he picked David, you know. And then I have a brother named Paul. After the guy who rode his horse 250 years ago in New England, shouting, the British are coming, the British are coming. After Paul, who now? Paul Revere. But he did not give him the name of Revere as some middle name. Gave him the name of Francis, after Francis Scott Key, national anthem. And so his name is Paul Francis Hahn. Then, I got one brother born during the Depression, 1932, named Herbert Hoover Hahn. So yeah, we have all these American fabric names. And he'd say, hey, you have this, you go out there and get it. Okay, so anyway, this is a picture here, just a publicity shot. This is when I got sworn in as city council. And it was mentioned so often when I first got elected here, they would interview me on TV and so forth about being the first minority. And I try to say, you know, being first minority is fine, but I ran on the basis I thought I could do better than my opponent. I thought I could bring something to society. It's not because I was a minority. And you know, but on the other hand, there might have been something to it because after that, there has been minorities on the city council ever since. So anyways, we'll move on. That's when I was getting sworn in. Qualcomm Stadium, that's a big issue today at Stadium. They were built 50 years ago. I was deputy mayor, and the big issue then was, how are we going to pay for it? A big issue, 50 years ago, how are we going to pay for it? So they put on the ballot the proposition, we do want a stadium for the Chargers. Otherwise, they don't get it, they'll move. 85%, yes, we want a stadium, keep the charge up. Then the next opposition underneath say, if we build a stadium, are you willing to share on the tax roll? Put it on the tax roll. It means that your property be taxed and so forth, everybody pays a check. But with 80% no, so it's the same thing. And then so we know the people wanted it, so I was task force chairman, as vice mayor, to come up with a program. And we did come up with a program. It's in the book. Some of the people who have read the book tells in more detail how we did it. And so today, they can't use the same formula because things have changed quite a bit. So I don't know how they're going to tackle this. And so every time you open the television station, they talk about how they're going to finance this. Okay, let's move on.
Oops, went
We're
backwards,
going
sorry.
backward.
Sorry.
That's Martin Luther King. Reverend Hampton called me up and said, Tom, Martin Luther King is coming to town, your deputy mayor. Can you represent the city and say a few words? I said, I'll be glad to. So, like, with a lot of dignitaries, when they come in town, before the event, they would have a chance where a few people can come and meet the individual. And I had the chance to talk to Martin Luther King at length. He talked about different things, about his work in different states and so forth. And I did say something to Martin Luther King. I said, Reverend, I think it's great, the work you're doing. It's great for America. It's great for the minority. It's great for the citizens. I think it's great what you're doing. He said, Tom, thank you very much. But you know, it's not just America. I'm doing it for the world. You know, then I got to thinking, Martin Luther King, he's a much bigger person. I was just thinking about my scope. He's thinking of greater scope. And that's Martin Luther King. So every time I see Martin Luther King's picture or hear about him, I think about that conversation I had with him. Okay, want to move on. That's Ronald Reagan signing my bill. It was a $29 million bill. It's the biggest bill of that nature in the history of the United States. It's a special educational bill, especially for minorities and especially for immigrants. English, the second language, whether it is Spanish or Chinese or Vietnamese or otherwise, English, the second language. That's to get the younger immigrant children on the road. And so that was the largest bill that's signed in history of Senate in the United States for that kind of education. So Ronald Reagan, how I met Ronald Reagan is that the chairman, Les Larry, called me up, Les Carey called me up and he said, Tom, I have Ronald Reagan. He wasn't in office. He was on TV, had a TV program. And he said he's thinking about running for a public office. He's going around the state talking to different newspapers and individuals about his philosophy and asking for your input. And he said, well, I have 10 people, and I'd like you to be one of the 10 to meet him in Mission Bay at the Hilton Hotel. And I said, okay. So anyways, I met with him on a one-on-one basis for about half an hour. There, when I entered his suite there was standing, and you know, I'm an artist, I'm a great admirer for Norman Rockwell, you know, and he had that picture, you know, Norman Rockwell picture, you know, all American looking and so forth. Stuck out his hand, greeted me, we talked, we talked and so forth. Anyway, I found he was sincere. He was sincere, although he was a movie star and, you know, movie star running for governor and so forth. But anyway, I did end up supporting him, and he supported me and my bills as well. And anyway, this is Gaslamp Quarter here. And Gaslamp Quarter was Skid Row for many years. And property values were down about $5 a square foot. That's giveaway property value. A group of people came to see me after I left government. They say, Tom, what could we do to save these old buildings, some built in 1800s and so forth? We have a lot of history in here, and some of the business are going out. There's a lot of vacancies and so forth. What can we do? So they invited me to their meeting. I was on the city council when the same thing came up with a group of people in Old Town. You know where Old Town is? This is where San Diego started. That's an old San Diego. And they had the same problem with adobe houses and so forth, and we created a historical district. And today it's thriving. It's became a state park now today, one of the most visited areas in San Diego, called Old San Diego. And so I shared with them that experience. Why couldn't we name this as maybe something in the gay 90s? So Gaslamp Quarter was the name we picked and so forth. And they asked me to be president, so I did. I visited a number of other areas like Seattle, Pioneer Square, Vancouver, and so forth, who had these kind of recovery. So we came back and applied a similar formula for all the Skid Row. And today, this is worldly known. Anytime they show a picture of San Diego, they focus in on Gaslamp, the zoo, and a few things like that. So anyway, Gaslamp property today is worth several $100s a square foot. It shows that these things can change, can be recovered, can be changeable. Even like people can be changeable. So anyway, that's Gaslamp Quarter, and that's Western Meadow property. Well, how do we end up with all 3 blocks of Western Meadow property, the Hom family? Was that we needed more space to park trucks for their produce business. And that was about 3 blocks from here, where our produce company was. And my brother asked me to try and find a spot to park trucks. So I looked in an area, and there was a sign, 3 blocks of property, Western Meadow property. They went bankrupt. And they were up for sale by Home Federal Bank. So I knew some of the people at the bank there. I called them up, I asked them the price and buying it. They say, we've been trying to sell that for 2 years, and you guys are interested, we can take it to court and get that accepted. And they say, we'll finance it for you. So they financed it for us and everything. So we bought 3 square blocks of property, Western Meadow. And then so anyway, when the time came, they needed a Petco Park, they needed a baseball park. And somehow or another, the only place they can put it is downtown, because that's where they can get the financing to build it. And so anyway, they came to see me and the family, say they're interested in the park. We can do 1 or 2 things. We can either negotiate a deal with you, or we can condemn the property to eminent domain. That means they have the right to take the property, and they'll pay you what they think it's worth. And so we say we just soon negotiate a price. So we negotiate a price, a fair price, and then so anyway, that's where Petco Park is today. And matter of fact, they were appreciative that we negotiated friendly with them on the premise what we learned in the produce business. You end up with 2 winners. That's a successful negotiation. Went up with 2 winners. And they were happy with it. They named a plaza in Petco Park after the Hom family. So anyway,
Don't you guys
That's
also have
cool.
skylocks? You have skylocks?
No. Didn't negotiate that, did you, Dad?
Okay, and anyway, and then one day I was reading a newspaper, I saw a newspaper that FCC, that's Federal Communication Commission in Washington DC, and they're gonna put a new television station. They didn't have cables really then, so I applied for it. There were 13 other groups applied for it, and I learned a lesson that, you know, to be successful in a lot of things, you want to get more people of a diversified background to get involved, like Gaslamp and all the other things, like my committees that I used to work on. And my application to the FCC in Washington had blacks, Latinos, whites, and of course Asians. And we made that application with the county board, if we should get the permit to put a television station. And out of the 13 applicants, we got it. And so when we got it, it was called Channel 69 KTTY. And later, we sold that. We sold that to the Tribune out of Chicago, and the Chicago Tribune sold it to the Fox Network. Today, it's Channel 5 on your television. So we had that for about 10 years, and we sold that. And so that's how I got in the television business. And, you know, in life, you don't always pick things, serendipity and so forth. And during the Gaslamp Quarter, trying to organize it, getting all the people together, it was a task. On my right, a fellow named Jim Brown, he's an entrepreneur. He came to see me one day later, and he said, Tom, make an application for a bank in our state of California. I'd like you to join us on the board. Well, I met him at the board meeting with Gaslamp and so forth. And so I joined. So we started a bank called Bank of San Diego. So I was vice chairman of it, so that's how I got in the banking business. I didn't think of going into the banking business, but he just came and asked me. So that's how I became involved. Later, we sold that to the bank. It's part of Wells Fargo Bank today. It's renamed. So anyway, life itself has a lot of these turns and twists, and you see these opportunities are proposed to you, or I call these serendipities, things you don't plan, but it comes. And this is part of the building that used to be the Chinese Christian mission in Chinatown, edge of Chinatown. And one day, it was a building that it was a historical building, and someone called my wife, late wife Dorothy, and said they're going to tear down that old Chinese mission building, historical. See, the church has moved out since, and Dorothy said, "Oh gosh, I'll see what we can do to save it." So we did save it. We put on wheels and so forth, and we made a museum on it. Today, the Chinese Historical Museum. It's on 3rd and J Street in the heart of the old Chinatown. And there's the history of Chinatown, history of the people and so forth. It's a very nice museum and very extensively, shown. So anyways, this is what I was, to my surprise, honored to Mr. San Diego in 1914. And so anyways, I'm receiving this on behalf of my mentors, especially my father, who gave us so much direction in our lives. And of course, mother too, and 2 mothers. And so, anyway, I just want to conclude. I think I ran over about 5 minutes. And so, anyway, I'm going to conclude. I want to tell you how happy I am to be here to share this occasion with you. And so, I'm going to open the floor now. Are there any questions or remarks? Okay, floor is open. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What kind of urban development philosophy did you use to get rid of that Skid Row. Can you do that really quick, because I know that's a big thing.
How was that, what did we,
What kind of idea did you use to get rid of the Skid Row and make it up to what it is now?
that's a good question. In the Gaslamp quarter, we had Skid Row, and we had the rescue mission there. And people were sleeping on the streets and so forth. And when you try to tell people, we're going to turn this around, they'll shake their head, I don't know, what can you do, and so forth. So what we did, we looked upon the city, what the city had in property, in surplus, that they're not using widely. And it so happened on 12th and J Street, there was a square block that used to be a playground, ballpark, a Rose Park. I used to play that there when I was a kid. In Chinatown, we were all over there playing, the Rose Park playground. The city had that property. The playground no longer exists because people moved away, things have changed. So we went to the city and said, here's what we want to do. We want to rejuvenate downtown, but we can't just kick out these people. We have this property over there, and can we make some effort to move the facilities there? Lo and behold, the city agreed to that. So we got hold of the rescue mission people. It's a nonprofit group. We explained to them and so forth, and they thought it was a great idea. Instead of just one big building in Gaslamp, they have a whole half a block that they could use. And then, so we helped them get the financing and everything. They set up beddings there and everything, and so we moved them there. You know, it's so easy to say, hey, get out of here. That doesn't solve the problem. You know, that's something, you know, sometimes, every time I read about people trying to do something for the homeless, I try to think, you know, just to say, move the mountains isn't going to solve the problem. You have three issues you have to first focus on. First, you've got to focus on the people who are mentally ill. Focus on the people who are drug addicts. Need rehabilitation. And those that just had lost their job, bad luck, divorce, and these things. But clear mind, can't get it together. You got the three categories, and you're trying to put them all together, you solve nothing really. And you get frustrated and you can't do it. We need to take these groups here and handle them in a special manner. The drug addicts, retrain them, and then the more mentally ill, work with them, and the people that lost their confidence while losing their job. But anyway, the rescue mission has programs, and so we won't be able to work with them. And that's a good question. And then, one of the things, my late wife, she was a great advocate. She lived in Gaslamp Quarter when we were talking about it. She'd be dressed up in her high heels and so forth, walk the street, there's a wine bottle, picks it up, puts it in the trash, there's some debris, newspaper, she'll pick it up and so forth. And she got me doing it. I say, Tom, you gotta do it because people will be watching you. So before you know it, people start sweeping the front of the stores, washing it down and everything. So you get the momentum going. And you know, so a lot of these people became very proud of Gaslamp instead of being ashamed of saying Gaslamp because they had so many go-go places there and adult bookstore. A gentleman wouldn't be seen down there unless he had a hanky-panky business. And a lady should be down there unless she's been in some kind of business as well. So anyways, it's different today. Families are down there, people have a lot of fun. And that's one of the focal areas when people come to St. Able to visit. Okay, any other questions?
Can you talk about voting, the importance of voting, and being as your civil liberty to?
I'll be happy to talk about voting because my first voting education was my father when I was 12. In America, the kind of laws that come out of there is the kind of people, the voters put in there. And I said to myself, wow, I want to be one of those, inside looking out. And indeed, I was able to do that. And yes, it's extremely important. When you go down the history of the country, one time, the blacks were properties. They were properties, And so eventually, the emancipation, even that, when they were able to vote, they couldn't vote. Poll tax and these things prevented from voting. And then as time goes on, barriers were set up. So voting is so important today, especially with young people. The percentage of young people voting has always been low. The highest are the people who are older. But the younger people perhaps are too busy, too many things to do. But you've got to make it a point to vote. But to vote, you have to register. And register, some people say, I don't want to go through the trouble. Well, here's a table full of applications, 2 applications where you can vote. So, any of you who want to vote, haven't, let's say, signed up, you can sign up today and vote. Vote the person of your choice. Vote the person of your choice, because after all, America has too many good people, and too many people, these good people got to get involved. Okay, so
raise a hand, how many of you are registered voters?
well, that's a pretty good percentage.
All right, so the rest of you who are not raising your hand, are you not old enough to vote yet?
Not a resident?
Not a resident?
No.
Okay. Any other excuses?
Well, all you got to do is come up here. You have the form here. He's going to ask you questions. There are questions that doesn't apply, make it applicable. And of course, you can't vote. But a lot of you can vote, but you never got around to it. So I just want to tell you, take a few moments and look into this.
So Juan Carlos will pass around ballots or registrations to vote if you are not registered yet. So please raise your hand if you need one. Brett?
I want to just add a few words because Tom and I are very involved. Tom and I are very involved in organizations that promote forums, especially during the election year. It's so important for us to know what the issues are and to take a stand once you decide that I like this idea better than that idea. It's better to be informed by reading, and just as an example, he reads 2 newspapers every morning. He won't leave the house until he's read the LA Times and the Union Tribune. And of course we watch TV, but also we belong to organizations that invite people to speak in forums. So avail yourself of the opportunity to go to these things like League of Women Voters. There are many organizations that study the issues and want to share that information, and it's up to us to figure out which candidate has the best ideas. So I just had to jump in because we feel so passionately about being civically engaged.
Thank you. Okay.
Can you mention or talk about your views of the candidates running this year and what you think about the election process this year?
Well, I've seen a lot of elections at 89, you see a lot of them, but this one's a little more unusual. And, Donald Trump seemed to have caught the imagination of a lot of people. And some of you might like to support him. And, but you want to understand that the 2 main parties, the Democrat and Republican, and within the parties themselves, each party, they have let's say, your left wing, your more conservative, and your moderate on both parties. And then sometimes you have to study. Because he's a Democrat, I'm a vote Democrat, you would say. But you look at the span of the party itself, because chances are the person that you might like falls into the category that you like. Either more conservative Democrat or moderate Democrat or liberal. See? And same with the Republican. So you can look at these things, and as far as today's election, I get a charge out of watching Donald Trump. And, I'm not going to vote for him. And, I'm at an age where I was born in 1927. 1927, that was 10 years after World War II. And as I grew up as a teenager in mid-30s, when I was about 14, 15, when I was able to understand things, when we went to the movies, they didn't have TV then, they would have newscasts. They would have newscasts. And the newscast would tell you what's going on in the world. And one thing struck me in mind was 1936. The World Olympics was held in Germany. And held in Germany, the biggest athlete in the history in modern time was a guy named Jesse Owens, a black athlete. He won 7 gold medals, never done before. And it was tradition. When you win these gold medals, the president of the country would make the presentation. Adolf Hitler was the president at that time. He just won the election a couple of years earlier. And he would not make that presentation to a black man, because Adolf Hitler preached to the people, the master race. I remember that. He talked about it in school, we saw it in the newsreel. And he started his organization, the Nazis, and so forth. And who were the people that he turned on for the benefit of his power? The Jews. Closed the businesses of the Jews, eliminated them in different areas and so forth, put them in ghettos and so forth. They were the whipping boy for Hitler. And not only at the end it got so bad, 6 million Jews were killed through the gas chamber. Hitler was admired. He talked just so fantastically convincing to the people. He'll flip-flop this way, but people loved him because he talked about the master race. And part of the master race. And when politicians talk so freely about, these things without facts and stuff, I'm kind of reminded of that. And at that time, there was another person called Mussolini out of Italy, a replica of Adolf Hitler. So I'm not voting for Donald, but that frightens me. But other people have different ideas. They have different ideas. He said he's going to make America great again. It takes more than just vocal voice saying to make it great. But anyways, that's part of my politics there. But we do have candidates there to run for Part 125. And so anyways, I see a hand there.
Mr. Hahn, sorry. I was just wondering, would you think that maybe he's some part of political strategy to make Bernie look good and Hillary bad? Because obviously no one could be that obnoxious, right? I think it's just some political strategy, like good cop, bad cop. What do you think about that?
I think he's a good talker and mesmerized the people.
It's like a mirage, right? Like
Yeah,
a mirage that influences
you
votes.
sort of mess with our minds for people. And, but I can't judge how, you know, I just, you know, at 89, you see double talkers all the time.
Yes, sir.
And then they become a little more cautious, you know,
Right.
say so. So people take their choice there.
Yeah, I make decisions out of the actions, and his actions are all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you, you've been very.
Okay, I just want to tell you what a pleasure to be here to share this day with you. Thank you so much.